Welcome to 123 Minimize, the podcast about easy minimalism for busy moms with Jody and Linnea.
Today we are visiting with Maggie from Pennsylvania. Maggie is a full-time working mom. She works outside the home as an orchestra teacher. She has 3 kids between the ages of 1 and 6 and has been married for 9 years.
All right. So, Maggie, tell us about your life before you found minimalism.
Sure. I grew up in a home that was often cluttered, and so I think that was kind of the norm for me. Like, I was just used to us always having to panic clean before guests would come over, and kind of carried that into adulthood. Not really purposefully, it's just maybe what I was used to. So it always felt like a huge undertaking for me to have the home be clean and tidy because I felt like I had to choose between spending time with my family, which usually won out, or spending time, putting things away. And so, besides the daily necessities, which I would think of as like dishes and laundry and things like that, I just kind of would let stuff go as long as I could so that I could spend time with my girls since I spent so much time out of the home working. It was not something that I felt like I could manage well. Didn't feel like I was doing that part of my duty as a wife and mom and homemaker well, but didn't really know how to climb out of that. And yeah, so that's kind of before I discovered minimalism.
Yeah, that's so relatable, especially when you're starting to have kids and they're little. Some of those things just go to the wayside because you just want to spend more time with your young kids. So I can totally relate to that.
Right. And since they're so young, my youngest is 1, and then I have a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old. The
Mm.
youngest one in particular, but the other 2 as well, when I'm home, they don't want me to be doing anything other than being with them or even be like physically touching them. So it's
Mhm.
kind of impossible to be doing it all.
Hmm. Can you recall a specific moment or event that set you on the path to minimalism?
Yes, I was trying to think about an answer to this, and I think after I had my 3rd daughter, I had some time off of work. I was on maternity leave, and I kind of felt like I was doing nesting after her birth more so than before because I was home and my older 2 still went to the babysitter 1 day a week. So I was taking some of that time to I like discovered some documentaries on Netflix and some shows about organizing and, editing your things. And it really appealed to me. And so I was able to use some of my time on maternity leave to get some things kind of in order in the house and felt like, maybe I was starting to get things under control a little bit. But my maternity leave ended obviously after a few months. And then when I went back to work again, it felt like I didn't have the time to put into the house and things kind of went by the wayside again. And since then, I feel like I've been trying to, I don't know, figure out how this could work for me. And I've been joining different Facebook groups, including, the Minimalist Mom one, and listening to different podcasts and reading books by different authors. It's like one thing would lead me to, I'd hear somebody's name and I'd join the next thing or read the next thing. I was really inspired by the idea that having less stuff could be the answer to a lot of my feelings of inadequacy as a wife or as a homemaker or as a mom. Um, so yeah, I would say that's what led me to this point where now my youngest daughter is already almost a year and a half old.
I completely relate to the one thing leads to another with, the documentaries, the YouTube, podcasts, books. I
Hmm.
think that a lot of times it goes kind of on that journey of you see something and you want a little bit more of it, or you want to understand more about it, or you want a little bit more inspiration. It's like a very natural, I think, progression towards this.
Hmm.
Yeah. So how has minimalism and decluttering affected your life?
I think that the biggest thing is that it gave me confidence or has given me confidence that I can feel in control of my house. Even when I only have, a few minutes to tidy up in the evenings, which generally is all that I feel like I do have time for after a day of working and then being with my family. But it's not overwhelming to me because there's not as many things, so we can put them away. They all have a home. those homes for the things aren't overflowing like they used to be. And so it can be done quickly. And I feel like I am in control of the house rather than the house being in control of me. I also always used to have this nagging feeling when I was relaxing or playing with my girls or whatever, that there's things that should be being done at home,
Mhm.
and that I just couldn't do it or couldn't keep up. And not that I mean, I could obviously be cleaning more than I am now, but
Mhm.
I don't have that constant feeling anymore because the house doesn't feel like it's closing in on me. And for me, I kind of mentioned this to you guys before, but minimalism in our house has led to me trying to minimize other areas of my life, which has been huge. So it's not just having less things around me, but it's kind of inspired me and my husband to start a debt-free journey and minimize our finances. I've been trying not to overcommit to things in my schedule as much lately, which I'm very good at overcommitting and saying yes to a lot of things. So, yeah, it's kind of like one thing has rolled into the next, and it's been freeing to kind of feel like I'm in control of all of those areas of my life, and that I'm not getting bogged down mentally or physically by things.
Mhm. Yeah, that's very key. What you said about feeling more in control of all those things, money, home,
Mhm.
schedule, because it can feel out of control in a bad way. Like you said, the house closing in on you, or your schedule throwing you all over the place, or the finances, where is it all going, right?
Hmm.
And I do think that so true. People find minimalism in the stuff category because that's usually where you start with, like YouTube, or it's all about what you have, but it really can go into every single part of your life.
Mhm.
And it's not about having less or not having what you need, really. It's just about having it on your schedule or in your budget or in your home, what you actually are going to use, so that it's like easier for you, or like a blessing to you, to be like, oh, I have a few minutes to clean and now it's clean. And
Right.
so I think
Mhm.
that's really beautiful, like to recognize, and it's not about like a lack of,
Hmm.
um, or not having enough, or being too strict with yourself. Because sometimes people hear that word control and they think like, oh, like a strict lifestyle, but it's not. It's like just like keeping it within a manageable amount, or what is going to fit into your life and your goals.
Yeah, that's
So
exactly it.
yeah, I think that's wonderful.
I love that. And what stood out to me most in what you just said was that you didn't have that nagging feeling that you needed to be doing something else when you were spending time with your kids. I so relate to that. I remember that, like, every day, no matter what I was doing, everything that I would do would be something on my list, but I always had that feeling like there's something else more important that I should be doing. And for you to be able to remove that, so that when you are spending time with your girls, you are present with them. Like, what a gift that is to you and them to have such quality time. Like, that just gives me goosebumps. I love it.
Mm. Yeah.
Could you share with our audience just a little bit about where you were in your minimalist journey in March and why you decided to join the Declutter event?
Sure. I guess by March, I had already been kind of like looking at things and reading things for several months, and was wishing, I guess, that I could become more minimal in my life, but kind of was paralyzed by not really knowing how to start or when to start. And there doesn't seem to be a good time, especially when you're working and have a family. It's not like there's a lot of downtime where I could just begin a purge. And I knew at that point that I had some donation and sale events coming up in early May. Our church garage sale, which is a huge thing, is the first week of May. And every year I say, oh my gosh, I should have donated more things, but I didn't have time to put them together. And there's also a big kids consignment sale around here at that time. So the timing with those sales seemed kind of perfect. And I personally do best when I put my money where my mouth is and commit to something. Like last summer, we had a bunch of overgrowth in our backyard. We bought our house as a foreclosure a couple years ago, and have kind of been like redoing things as we can when we have money and time because it was uninhabited for a while. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to buy a dumpster for a week and then that will force us to do it because that's $500 and we don't really have a spare
Mhm.
$500. So I did it and that it worked. It forced me to do it even though I didn't want to. So this was obviously a lot less money than that, but I really value honoring commitments. And so when I decided to sign up for the Declutter event in April and pay for it, I then told myself, all right, I'm going to do this. And I paid for it. And so I'm committing to the month. And I also told several friends and family members in March after I signed up that I was going to do it in April in anticipation of needing that accountability. And that was helpful too. I had a lot of people checking in with me throughout the month and even still, afterwards saying, "Hey, how did your decluttering go?" So that's been helpful as well. So it's kind of the perfect storm. And I was really excited to see you guys advertise the decluttering event because it was kind of what I had been looking for, and it was a blessing that popped up in my Facebook news.
Mhm. It is a lot with the ages of your girls and working full time outside of the home. How did you find time for the challenge? Like, because we have daily stuff happening and it's quite, some of the days have big topics. So, how did you make that work? Because I also work full time and it can be a lot. It just can be. And my kids aren't as young as yours anymore. So, how did you make it work?
Right. I was not really able to create much more time during the day since
Mhm.
that's kind of,
Yeah.
a scheduled routine. I just kind of accepted the fact that for that month, as needed, I was going to be going to bed late.
Mhm.
And I ran home on my lunch breaks sometimes because I work in the same district where I live. And I just decided to get it done no matter what. So,
Wow.
some nights I wasn't going to bed till like midnight, which for me is really late.
Mhm.
And my girls go to bed around 8 o'clock. But I would go to bed with this feeling of accomplishment because I knew I had done whatever the daily task was. And for me, I don't know if it's my personality or what, but that's important for me to keep my momentum and my motivation is to like actually try to get things done as they're assigned. And my husband was encouraging me through that as well. There were a couple days in April where our students at school had tests, like standardized tests. And since I'm a special area teacher, I can't teach at those times where I was able to take a half day and the girls were at the babysitter and I could get some stuff done that way as well. So I was just trying to pick times where I could get them. And like I said, I stayed up late more than I would, but I kind of knew this was a one-time thing. I wasn't signing up for a
Mhm.
lifetime of staying up late
Mhm.
decluttering. It was just for this 1 month. So it worked well, and the momentum kind of helped me get out of that paralyzed feeling that I always used to have when I would think about decluttering or purging or whatever similar thing, because I finally just did it. And once I started, even though I have 3 young kids, it was easier than I thought to keep going.
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's a lot of work. I mean, really good job because it's staying
Yes.
up till midnight and
Thanks.
and yeah, it's a lot. It does take a lot and it's really great that you decided to just go for it. I think it does
Yeah.
take a lot of like internal, motivation or just like I'm going to do it, I'm going to stick to it and go for it. So, great.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
Well, and I had written down here too, and I don't know if this number changed after you had shared this with the community, but you had shared that you sold 106 items in a consignment sale and at least 2 full van loads of items to your church garage sale. That's amazing. I mean, you really showed up for it. Like I noticed that you were there. So that's just wow. I'm just impressed.
Thanks. Yeah, the only downside about that was, and I think I mentioned this to you guys during the event, but it was slightly disheartening that the items that I was purging weren't immediately leaving my house. I knew there was
Yeah.
a timeline where they would be gone, but I
Mm.
kind of hated knowing that they were still lurking in the house somewhere.
Mhm.
So I was really excited when that first week of May came and I was like, okay, let's get everything out of here. So, we like
Mhm.
loaded up the car and I was tagging items for the consignment sale like a mad woman and like loaded the girls in the car and there was stuff all around them, which was a bold move because my oldest daughter was like, oh my gosh, where did my
Oh,
ukulele go? And I was like, oh, okay, here it is. So
Yep.
she only rescued one item out of the 100, and think I brought 135 to the sale and sold 106. So one
Wow.
item,
wow.
not too bad.
Yeah, it is very risky to not get rid of it right away for sure, because
Mhm.
yeah, people can pick it back out.
Right.
So it takes patience and self-control and all that stuff. So I always like to
Mm,
stick it in my trunk and then not think about it until I can drop it off. But when I heard you were doing that, I'm like, wow, that is amazing. And then you had such
mhm,
success. And so
mhm,
that's wonderful.
mhm.
So what was the hardest area for you to declutter, and what was the easiest?
I think once got going, the easiest was probably my linen closet. I guess there's a couple other areas similar to that, but it's not a closet that we go in often unless we need to get, a towel or a toiletry item. And so there was nothing that anyone was attached to in there. So it was pretty easy for me by myself. I think that one I did on a lunch break to just go through it, got out everything that was old or duplicates of things or things that we weren't using. And nobody is any the wiser except for me because I'm pretty much the only person who opens that door. Um, the hardest thing, or at least the one that I was most intimidated about, was toys. We don't live in a very big house, and so we do not have a toy room. And I had read on several different minimalist things about toy rotations, but I'm like, I do not have the capacity to add another thing that I'm doing with, even if it's an easy enough rotation. Like, I just want everything that we have to be out and accessible, and I don't have to pack it up. And so I decided that everything was going to, I was going to go with a fine tooth comb through everything that we had. And all of our toys are in our living room or some in our oldest daughter's room. Um, and it was not as bad as I thought. It only took a few hours, and I easily got rid of more than half of their toys. And
Wow.
I was, I think the hardest part was just I was worried they would hate me after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
If there was something that they loved that was gone and they were devastated. So that did help that I was saving things for a few weeks in secret
Mhm,
because there were a few items that it turned out I probably shouldn't have put in the bag. And so then I got them out. But my oldest daughter, I had her help me before she went to bed that day. And I told her that I was going to give things away to people who didn't have toys because we had so many, and asked her what she definitely wanted us to keep. And so she made a little pile of things that were most important to her. And so those stayed, and almost everything else that she had in her maybe or donate pile are gone.
mm.
So it was a great feeling, and it didn't end up being as bad as I thought, but that was the thing I was most dreading.
Wow. Well, sounds like you really did a good job of facing that, because it can be crippling when you feel like that and you're not sure if you're going to, get through it. But that's
Mhm.
amazing. Good job. Earlier, you were sharing about how you found that minimalism, spilled over into other areas of your life and helped you with your finances and your schedule, for example. I was just wondering if you could take a minute and share how, is there any other way that your mindset changed during the declutter event?
I think the things that I mentioned before are the biggest changes that I saw. I
Mhm,
had always just resigned myself to the fact that, or it's not a fact, I guess, but the idea that, okay, well, in this season of life, when we have several kids who are young and they're in childcare and they need all of these things, in the house, it's just our house is always going to be a little bit of a train wreck. And we're just always going to be living paycheck to paycheck because that's what stage of life we're in. We're both teachers, so we're not making, loads of money, and we have student loans and things. Um, and the shift has been huge because I feel empowered that, you know, that doesn't have to be the case, and I can be working towards being debt free, or I can have a house that we are able to take care of and enjoy and live in, which was an answer to prayer because I feel like that's something I've struggled with for years. And like I said before, one thing kind of led to another with what I'm minimizing, but the biggest shift was just changing from saying, I don't think this is something that will ever be for us to, oh yeah, we can do this. And it might take a while, but we're going to do it together.
So you mentioned that you've been married for 9 years, right?
Yeah.
You just talked about, this long journey and doing it together. So how did you get your spouse on board? When did you realize that they were totally on board, and how's that been going?
Yeah. And my husband and our anniversary is in a couple days. So it's
Oh,
almost 9 years.
congratulations.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Um,
Wow.
I think he was nervous when I started telling him that I was reading about and watching things and listening to things about minimalism. He was a little turned off only because of the stigma or idea with minimalism being like bare bones, not having anything
Yeah.
extra. And we're both musicians, so we perform and we teach and we have a space in our house where we teach. And so just by necessity, there are things that we need, that genuinely can't be, quote, decluttered. Like we needed several different kinds of instruments and sheet music. A lot of that we scanned, but there's like books and things that we cannot get rid of. And so I think he was nervous that I was going to start coming after those items on my, quest to declutter. But once he saw that I was serious about it and saw me working really hard, um, he was super supportive, and he would actually be working on decluttering areas that had his stuff sometimes while I was out of the home and he was there without the girls. So I would come home and see that he had decluttered like things in our music room, or we have this closet in our daughter's room. Our oldest two share a room that has been unusable for the whole 9 years that we've been married because my husband's things from grad school and undergrad and childhood just somehow like were at our house and we needed a place for them. So they all went in this closet and it was packed, from floor to ceiling with boxes. And so on days of the decluttering event where either there was something that I was doing that he couldn't participate in, or if there was something that I had already decluttered and I didn't need to do, we would take together when we put the girls to bed, like 4 or 5 boxes down from the closet, and we would bring them downstairs and he would go through them. And I was taking trips to the church dumpster at night, to because things that weren't donations that were trash, did want out of the house quickly. So he made it through that closet so the girls can put their American Girl dolls in there, which is exciting.
Yeah.
Um, and I think, yeah, like I said before, when he saw that I was serious and saw the change in the house and how it was positively impacting our family, he was on board. And so he's been on board the whole time with, also with the finance stuff. We've started watching these Dave Ramsey DVDs from a friend together in the evenings now and making plans together with our money and how we're going to get it out of debt and what the time frame is with that. So that's been fun to kind of have a partner along on the journey with that.
Oh, that's
Mm.
wonderful to kind of gain that momentum with him getting on board as well, and then it spilling into other areas of your life. I mean, finances can be a big pain point in a relationship sometimes. Like it's one of those top things to argue about. So getting on the same page and having like a goal in mind with the minimalism stuff is amazing.
Hmm.
Yeah. I think we did the debt-free stuff before I found minimalism. I think it probably led into the minimalism stuff, so the opposite direction. But it was quite the journey and quite an accomplishment, and it feels good though. So I'm sure you guys will speed right along on that as well. You were so determined with the challenge, even with balancing the kids and then the job, and you made amazing progress. So I can imagine you guys are going to make amazing progress with the debt
Mhm.
stuff as well.
Thanks. Yeah, you
Yeah.
can check in with me in a couple years and
Yeah,
see how we're doing.
right. I mean, that's the thing, in the event, right? The month that can even be a little bit long sometimes. Like the first week,
Mhm.
people come out of the gate really strong, and then the next week they lose it a little bit sometimes. But how did you keep the momentum going? Because it sounds like you really did.
Yeah, I mean, there was certainly some days where I couldn't get done what I wanted to, whether it was just that I had a long day at work or that, sometimes we have a lot of evening events as a family with church and things. So sometimes we just like physically weren't home long enough for
Yeah.
me to get something done. So I think that the biggest thing was trying to at least maintain what I had already done. You had us do some really noticeable areas within the first week or two, which was helpful because then I could at least say, okay, well, we're at least going to keep the living room and the kitchen, which is basically just our main floor, tidied up at the end of the day. And then seeing that and how relatively easy that was to maintain compared to what it had been
Mm.
definitely gave me the motivation that it was worth continuing on. And my husband was encouraging on those days. So his accountability was really helpful because he would remind me, hey, you didn't get done that thing yesterday. So sometimes I would get up early and try to finish what I had fallen behind on.
Hmm.
And I think that consuming content like podcasts or reading books that were centered around minimalism or things similar to that was helpful because then even if I wasn't physically at home, like maybe I was at work or traveling between schools or on my lunch break or whatever, I was still consuming things that were getting me in the right mindset to want to declutter whenever I got home. Um, and that was really helpful for me was just to kind of surround myself with it throughout the day. So it wasn't just something that was on my mind after 8:30 p.m.
Hmm. Yeah, that's wonderful.
Wow. So, what would you say to someone who is on the fence about getting started?
I would say to just decide to make the commitment and get some accountability in real life. You obviously get the accountability online too,
Hmm.
and just do it because it's something that is, I think you used the word crippling before, or paralyzing when you're not knowing what to do. But this is like an open invitation to anybody to, this is your chance. Pay the whatever the fee is and try it and commit to at least giving it your all for those 4 weeks. And it is possible not to be overwhelmed by the things in your house. And it is possible to kind of gain control of those areas of your life that you didn't think you could before.
Hmm. Yeah,
Love
that's so
that.
true. Yeah.
Hmm.
And I think it's such a good, like you said, it's a dated thing, right? So you're like in it and you're just doing it, and then you get really good at it.
Hmm.
And so even if it slows down for the next months, right? Because life is just so busy and summer's busy and everything, right? Um, but you just know that you did so well at it. So, and have cleaned out like a lot of things out of your house, and that momentum kind of keeps going.
Right. And I think you guys talked about before if you use the word phrase like you're decluttering muscle or something.
Yeah. Hmm.
Um, I have noticed even now, I've done one pass through almost every area of the home. There's like a closet or two that haven't gotten as much of attention, and then our garage and basement and outdoor area. But I can even notice now through the areas that I have decluttered, now that I can kind of see more stuff because nothing's hidden, thinking, oh, I actually, don't wear these shirts, or we haven't used this toy in a long time. So I do anticipate as time goes on, not having another humongous declutter probably, but just being able to be willing to get rid of things that I don't need and not feeling like I need to keep them for any random reason that I've made up in my head.
Hmm. Yeah.
Mhm.
I love
Mhm.
that. So is there anything else that you'd like to share with us about your minimalism journey?
Yeah, I guess one thing that I think is interesting about minimalism after I kind of did this is that it's interesting to me that I hadn't discovered it earlier because I feel like minimalism aligns so closely with my values and with my faith, and just like the idea of being content with what you have and humility and this value of family over things and your time over things. And it's just like, oh my gosh, why have I not been thinking this way before? because it seems so obvious now that this is something that I should have been doing all along. And I'm just really excited about it. And I feel like I talk about it a lot with people who ask, because like I said, I told a lot of people that I was going to do the decluttering in April. And so they've been checking in, and I'm like super pumped to talk to anybody who will listen to about all the things that I got rid of and our plans for, money and all sorts of things. So it's exciting that even though it started as a 4-week challenge that I committed to, I can definitely see this being something that is carried with me forever.
Wow. That's so neat.
It is very inspiring. The words, your summary there about everything. I mean, I feel like you've had so many good takeaways on your journey in the beginning here, and you probably will carry it with you. I mean, when you learn stuff in life, you just keep going with it. And I know for me, it's changed my perspective, how I view things, and it sounds like it has for you too. And it's only good stuff, and it's not living with nothing. Like in those videos we watch on YouTube, somebody living with 5 possessions or something. That's what I think a lot of people see minimalism as, but it is just different. It is just, if my child breaks a mug, I don't care. It's like, oh well, that's great. One less mug, I am not as emotionally tied to stuff. I'm more emotionally tied to my family. And I just think that your takeaways are really awesome from this journey that you're on.
Well, Maggie, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us about your minimalist journey as a mom. I know that your story is going to inspire so many people.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
This is a great time to mention our upcoming Summer Declutter event in July 2024. We will be holding a 4-week Facebook event that has been designed to help you reach your minimalist goals. We will provide you with all the tools and the structure that you need to be successful in this event. You'll receive a 70-plus page workbook and be a part of a private Facebook group for connection and accountability. In addition, you will have access to 2 months free in our membership community for continued support in maintenance mode. Don't miss this event. We are going to have so much fun providing you with guidance through daily tasks, tips, prizes, and coaching. Registration is now open at our website, and we would love to have you join us. We hope you enjoyed delving into this topic with us and found a few tips that might help you on your journey. We want to extend a heartfelt thank you to our amazing listeners for tuning in. Your support and curiosity are what keeps us going. For more tools and resources to help you on your journey toward a simpler life, visit our website, www.123minimize.com. If you found today's episode valuable, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast so you never miss an opportunity to explore new ideas and perspectives. And if you're inclined, leave us a review, which helps to spread the word to others who might enjoy the journey too. As always, feel free to connect with us on Facebook or Instagram to share your thoughts, suggestions, or just to say hi. Until next time, stay motivated. Take care.